We have to realize that we're all on this spectrum of men and women and everything in between. And the more we just say, let's just be who we are and be able to be authentic and sincere in that and be accepting of that, again, the more we're going to be able to build better communities.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mindful Wealth Podcast. We have with us today Liza Rogers, who is actually a guest on another show of mine. Liza is the founder of WREN, so the Women's Real Estate Investors Network. She is a career real estate investor, and she has just recently curated the book Ordinary to Extraordinary, which is a collection of personal stories from female real estate investors. So we thought she would be an excellent person to have on this season's show about women and wealth.
Liza, tell us your story. What makes you, what do you do? We've already said you're a real estate investor, but what do you love?
How much time do we have, Jonathan?
Yeah, a couple minutes, maybe 5 minutes, the quick episode, the quick version.
Yeah, tell us the story. So basically, I have been in tourism and events and love to travel. And I always kind of say, I retired first. And then at 40, I was like, oh, what do I do with this great lifestyle that I've built? How am I ever going to retire? And I realized that, as someone who was working, I was kind of an early adopter to the gig economy, right? I was working on contract a lot, went between cruise ships and events, had a great time. But the reality was, there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford to retire. I used to be kind of a unicorn, a single woman with no children, but now there's more and more of us. And we have to plan things out a little bit more, right? So I started thinking about how am I going to ever be able to retire and maintain this great lifestyle that I have? Because I was just completely unwilling to compromise my lifestyle. And I looked at real estate, and real estate was the only solution that made sense to me. It was something that I could do. It was something that I could collaborate on. It was something that, I could do with OPM, right? Other people's money. And so I dove in, learned as much as I could. And I'm one of those people who, as I learn exciting things, I love to share them. And so as I was learning, I was sharing with other people, and I was generally finding that women were not participating in real estate investment, even though they are driving the market in many ways in terms of the whole real estate thing globally, and especially in North America and in Europe. We're not necessarily making big investments. And so WREN was born to help with that. And WREN and myself and all of our community are just like moving forward, incredible momentum, even in this time that we're in right now, this time of uncertainty. Uncertainty often brings the greatest opportunity. And so, my story is real estate was a solution to a problem. I was, the problem of having too much fun and not having enough money. That's a big problem, and I had to fix it. And real estate was the solution. And so here I am a few years later and super excited to be here.
So, you've already hinted at some of the questions to come, which is great. But before we go into that, I want to actually, we talk about true wealth. We talk about success. I think you mentioned fulfillment in your book is kind of how you reference it. So what does that mean to you? What is true wealth in your definition?
Yeah, for me, true wealth is less about money and more about experience, right? Like I'm not someone who's I don't collect stuff. Like you'll see, a half a dozen little pieces of very inexpensive art on my wall there. I've got the ibis from Australia, the wave from BC, the kiwi, and the Sydney shot. And for me, life is about the people that you get to hang out with and the experiences that you share and the memories that you create. I think there's an old saying about, I want to go to my grave with a photo album loaded with memories, not a bank account full of money, So, I'm an experienced person, and I probably spend as fast as I earn. So wealth to me is having a full, that fulfillment, a full life where I wake up in the morning and I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel good about the relationships that I'm creating. I feel good about the impact that I'm making in my community, that I'm not doing any damage to anyone. And that for me is what wealth is about, having enough money to be able to provide for myself, provide for my mom. My mom's 76 now, and she's a rock star. We just love her. All my friends love her, and we travel together. We're doing a big trip coming up soon, actually. Being able to do that, and being able to just be comfortable and not have to rely on the government. So many of us right now we need government handouts to survive. And I just don't want to be one of those people who reaches an age where it's like, if I'm not getting money from the government, I'm not gonna be able to survive. I don't, I know that we have people in our community who need that. But I think all of us need to also learn to become more responsible for our own futures, because if you put responsibility in the hands of someone else, then you only have yourself to blame when you don't end up having what you really want.
Wow.
Yeah. And so let's put a little bit of a, women's positioning spin on this. So this episode is about women and wealth. You've kind of outlined for us what you feel like, wealth is for you. Maybe you can kind of connect the dots a little bit for us between your definition of wealth, financial wealth, and then the way in which you see, femininity or a positioning as a woman fitting into that. Because really, I don't know if obviously you're aware of this, but WREN and ordinary to extraordinary are two very kind of, I don't want to say feminist because maybe you don't like the word, I don't know, but very female forward kind of things. So connect those dots for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, Terry, you're right on, right? I mean, whether you word whether you word it as feminist or women forward or women centric, right? It is about helping to empower and encourage women. We have lots of men who participate with us as well as part of WREN, the Women's Real Estate Network. But we mostly are about helping to educate and help women feel enlightened. So a couple of key reasons for that. In Canada, and actually in the US as well, the average age of a widow is 56 years old. And so that's a shocking statistic. Yeah, right, Jonathan, that's the face
wow.
we state that statistic, right? Because people are shocked when they hear that statistic. And I go and check it every time I'm doing a podcast, because it is one of the most shocking statistics, and it's something that women need to be aware of. So the reasons for that: women tend to look after their health more than men. So they are generally healthier. They are living longer. Women are anticipated that they may outlive their partners by as much as 30 years. They're remaining single longer. So they may, after their partner passes away, they may not remarry. So they might be single for 30 years and do what a lot of the women that we're seeing are doing now, buying what we call the BFF mansion, buying the best friends forever mansion with their girl pals, like the Golden Girls. And that statistic, also comes from the fact that generally speaking, women tend to marry a little bit older than themselves, right? So many male-female relationships are, the gentleman in the relationship might be anywhere from 2 to 15 or 20 years older. So that statistic comes from a logical place. And yes, it is a scary statistic. So if women aren't looking after their wealth and their health, because, again, part of being wealthy is having access to good health, which we could talk about on a whole other podcast. But part of that is, being able to afford what you need to do to be healthy, being proactive about it rather than reactive about it, and putting things in place to make sure that you are set up for a long, healthy, wealthy life. And when you look at statistics like the average age of a widow in Canada, another, and the US, as I mentioned, and another shocking statistic after a divorce, which, let's face it, divorce rates are about 50 to 60% for most marriages. Apparently they're improving because less people are getting married. So that stat is changing. But a woman's quality of life typically drops by 75% after a divorce. So with those stats alone, women need to wake up and participate in the whole investment culture. And women make good investors because they generally tend to invest holistically with more thought. So they will, they love to collaborate. So, WREN's all about collaboration. They love to collaborate. They like to get lots of good information, lots of due diligence, lots of referrals, and make good, sound, holistic investments. And so that is a better benefit for themselves, for their families. Over the long term, it could be a better benefit for their communities. And again, it goes to the fact that women must step into this space now. So we have to start getting more and more women investing. And I love to see that there are so many different organizations, really globally now that are focused on getting women in investing, whether in real estate or businesses or community, their health, their wealth, all of these things.
How important, I'm just curious because we talk about all the statistics and they're very, I mean, I'm shocked by the 50, 55, 56, was it?
56, yeah.
I think that's some early demise from men as well, there as well. But how important is mindset? Like in the book, you talk a lot about confidence coaching or know your why coaching, sort of. How important is that? Once you know all those statistics, how important is getting some coaching on those mindset things?
Yeah, great point, Jonathan. One of the things for me that's key is attitude and mindset, right? I mean, you can probably get a pretty good sense. I'm a pretty cheerful, optimistic person. My biggest momentum pushes forward have been in the times of greatest uncertainty and greatest change and challenge. And so, it's mindset that really helps us with that. So a couple of key things that we talk about when we talk about mindset: surround yourself with people who are going to support you. And that's why having a network of people, whether that's an affinity group for your hobbies or your health or your wealth, whatever it is, but surround yourself with people who lift you up. One of the first things I say to people: stop watching those reality TV shows where women are kicking each other down, because they are a disaster, and none of those should be on TV because they do nobody any good whatsoever. We need to constantly be lifting each other up. We need to be supporting each other. And that goes for the guys too. I mean, one of the things that I say to men is you guys need your tribe too, right? Like men have kind of gotten the short end of the stick right now as women are like booming, right? The guys are like, well, what's our role? But you guys need to have your space as well, and need to be able to be men, right? So,
what does that mean now? I'm not sure what that means now, but that's a different podcast. That's a different podcast.
That's the last question, Jonathan. Don't steal the thunder from later.
That's a whole other one. But that mindset piece is, waking up in the morning, feeling grateful for what you have, right? Being, I have a little gratitude egg in my window and somebody gave it to me, and I hold on to it in the morning and I just say a couple of things that I'm grateful for, realizing, when you look around you, that so many people in the world have it much worse off than you do, pretty much no matter what your current situation is. And being grateful for a sunny day, being grateful for a rainy day, if that's what you need, right? But looking at things always with that sense of optimism, because that, if you turn on the news every day and watch the news, you will just wallow in sadness. And none of us will get anything done if we just sit around, and we won't change the world. We won't make improvements if we just sit around and watch the news, that's fed to us in a very kind of fearful way, especially, in the US, right, where you've got such terrible access to actual global news, like what's really happening in the world. It's a little bit better here in Canada, but not by much. But, it's that surrounding yourself with people, waking up with the right attitude, and also when things aren't great, being open about it, right? Like I'm the first one, if I'm, we have weekly WREN meetings, and if I'm not having not having a great day, sometimes I just put my hand up and say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm having a shitty day and I'm just putting it out there. I'm not going to be my usual self, so someone else is going to have to drive the bus today. And when you've got a good group of people, they come to the rescue every time.
Can you, because you are very happy and full of energy, and I can totally sense that. I've just met you like 5 minutes ago. What are some of the struggles you've had to overcome? I mean, let's make that real.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. So many. Being a single person, I grew up with a mom who raised 2 daughters on a hairdresser's salary. I mean, we moved a lot when I was a kid, so I was always a new kid on the block. Going through times in my life where I didn't have a job, like got laid off because of 9/11 and I was in the travel industry, or an event, for example, I had the great privilege of working at the Vancouver Olympics, which I loved doing. And then after the Olympics was finished, everybody in the city of Vancouver was now an event planner, and the salaries dropped by 30%. So you're like, you could make a living one week, and now you're living in one of the most expensive cities in North America, and you can't make a living doing it. So I've had so many challenges to overcome. I moved to Australia, gave up my life in Vancouver, moved to Australia with a partnership that I thought was solid, and, pretty much lost everything. I came back home and I moved to Victoria, and that was kind of when I had to restart. And I said to, my friends and my family, I said, look, I'm pretty much at rock bottom here. So, when you see me, just expect tears, right? And so, that's part of it as well, right? Is being vulnerable enough to know when you need help, and saying, hey, need some help here, and your friends are going to be there. And so having a good, stable, strong relationship with friends and family helps, because there are going to be times when you're going to feel like crap, and that could come from losing a person, or losing money, or losing opportunity, and whatever it is. It's being open to going through that, right? Because when you go through it rather than suppress it, you come out the other side. So I'd rather, push my way through it and then come out the other side. And yeah, I've had to reinvent myself many times. And each time, you learn from those mistakes, you pay your tuition, and you just keep pushing forward, and you end up coming out with new knowledge, new confidence, new ideas, usually new supporters, and just, a whole new refreshed outlook on things.
But so if we bring it back to like kind of, the women question, what are some of the obstacles you feel like are out there that women face to building wealth, to involving themselves in investing, and cultivating that kind of, stability that if by choice they find themselves alone, that they can, look after themselves?
Yeah, great question, Terry. So fortunately, the obstacles are becoming less and less, right? We are in a phase now, whereas we're noticing that women are taking more and more control, more and more responsibility for their lives, rather than giving that responsibility away. So if we talk to, our parents or grandparents for some generations, a lot of women didn't even have their own bank account, didn't have their own credit card, would go into a bank and apply for a mortgage. And God forbid you were a single woman applying for a mortgage, because the first thing the banker would say would be, is your husband applying for this mortgage with you, right? So we're only just reaching that point now, where institutionally governments, the banks, the insurance companies, all of the big kind of, institutions that are the boxes, we call them the institutions and the boxes, they're finally balancing out a little bit, right? It's not, it's not all men. There's more women being involved. And as we see that women do contribute to their communities more holistically, women are being invited in. So the other side of that is, we're kind of no longer asking for a seat at the table. We're just saying, move over, I'm coming in with my seat. And so that's a very different approach to, please, sir, may I come and join you, to, hey, dude, can you move over a little bit? I'm coming in. And so we're seeing those kinds of things happen. We're seeing the institutions changing in terms of, how many boards do you hear now saying, we need diversity? We need, more people of color. We need more age diversity. We need more women. Basically what they're saying is, we need more than just the old white guy, right? Like, they're just saying that in the political correct way that they need to say it. And that is really making a big, clearing a path for more women to participate. So the obstacles are becoming less and less. The other thing that's happening globally is the access to education. And this is having a huge impact on the number of children born, for example. I mean, it used to be on the African continent, I think the average number of children was somewhere between 9 and 17. That with education has dropped to between, I think it's 4 and 10. So people are having far less children because as they get educated and understand the opportunities that they have as women who have some form of education, they can participate more in the growth of their community, and they can come participate more in the control and responsibility over their own bodies. And so having less children, less impact on the environment, more sustainable, and more opportunities for women to be more than just a mom, which not saying that that's a bad thing, but a lot of women have not been able to have the opportunity to do other things. So the obstacles are coming down, the advancement in education, and whether that's self-education, personal growth, or university or high school education, it depends where in the world you are, but just access to people and education of almost any kind for women is a great thing, and that's really changing. And I think the final thing that I would say is the networks that women are setting up. I mean, we just see groups and groups and groups of women getting together and building strong networks, and having their club, right? Having their clubs, their tribes, just like we mentioned, the guys need that too. And gentlemen have had it, the guys have had the men's clubs for a long time, and we've seen a little bit of a decline in that because women want in. And it's like, okay, ladies, we got to give the guys their space too. We don't need to be in on everything. Let's have some of our own stuff, and let's let the guys have some of their own stuff. And let's find ways that we can, build on each other's strengths, and support each other, because that's really what it all comes down to. We all need to support each other if we're all gonna survive and thrive.
Is there a need? I'm thinking as we're going here, and I'm just noting that you're very open. Hey, men need their space, women need their space. We need to support each other across the genders, and I'm sure you would say the same thing about colors and everything, right? Is there? This is a political question, and I apologize for this, right? And Terry's like going, "Oh my God, here we go." So in the U.S., like 65% of realtors are women. It used to be 35 years ago that women got 44% of the college degrees. Now it's more like 55 to 56% of the college degrees. Y'all are way better at forming those networks and being social than we are. The reason that I think that we had it for so long is because we sort of held everyone back for a long time, right? So, but the more you guys get there, the more you're setting up these networks, you're going to take over. Like, we've already seen this, right? It is happening. And so on the other side, I think we see a lot of fear. I think one of the things we see in the US specifically is an enormous amount of fear and it's, will you include us? And I love what you're saying, because I think you will. I don't think everyone feels that way. I'm just wondering if you run into these other networks that are like, no, just women, just women, just women.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are the networks that are just women, just women, just women, just as there are the networks that are, just men, just blacks, totally. just whatever, right? And I think we need both.
Yeah.
And again, I think we all need to recognize that, we need to let men be men, and we need to let women be women. And then we know that there's that whole spectrum of everything in between, right?
Yep.
Like there's, sometimes people will tell me a story, after I've had some of these conversations, and they'll say, oh yeah, my little boy, I knew that he was going to be one of those manly men from the time he was 2, just because of the way he picked up hammers and played with trucks and the way he picked his clothes. And then the same thing with the girls, right? Like, no, my baby girl, princess. All she wanted to do was wear pink dresses and a crown. So I knew she was, so, we have to realize that we're all on this spectrum of men and women and everything in between. And the more we just say, let's just be who we are and be able to be authentic and sincere in that and be accepting of that, again, the more we're going to be able to build better communities globally, nationally, locally, right? I mean, one of the things that we know is an issue is people who are transgender trying to find housing, right? So if you have a community of transgender housing that build their own tiny home community, like, wouldn't that be a great thing, right? Being able to be in community and not feel like you're marginalized in any culture is just such a powerful thing, because you get your energy from your like-minded supporters, right? So it's always different when you're getting advice and feedback from someone who's more like you than from someone who's completely different than you, right? And so that's, obviously that's also a good thing, because that breaks down barriers. But just as a pure, hey, I can be my total self around this person, and no one's going to question who I am or why I am the way I am. So it's just, I strongly, I'm an advocate for, live and let live, right? The less fear we have in the world, the more knowledge and respect we have for each other, the stronger we all get to move forward, and the better world we're going to have. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's just so true.
Yeah, we have to get out of our own ways. I mean, that's
exactly
totally true.
And I think we have to realize there truly is enough for everybody. Right? Like, we know we're in a global culture where we waste a lot, and that's being worked on. But it's not like there's going to be a money tap that turns off when we reach, a certain amount of money that's out in the world. It's all of a sudden not going to turn off. The water in California might be a different situation, right? That tap might turn off, but there's going to be other solutions for that.
We're just going to take the water from other states.
Yeah,
I mean,
take it from Canada.
Like, that's what we're going to do.
From BC, exactly. Yeah. But that, I think, is the thing, right? Like, there is enough for everybody. We have abundance. We waste so much. We waste time, we waste money, we may waste resources. And if we, as we're working through things now, and young minds and old minds working together to really create some new solutions to problems, hopefully we'll get there.
I think I'm sorry, Terry, I'm cutting you off again. I'm noticing you're trying to say something, but it's not just that we waste them, we also hoard. Like, because we're so afraid, we hoard.
Absolutely.
And we're afraid, and then we hoard more, and we get more afraid, we hoard more, and then there's not enough. And so there's this, if we just would relax and sort of support everyone, we would have enough to go around. Everyone could be happier. I mean, you're totally right. You're right on. Absolutely. Sorry, Terry, go ahead.
And just to add to that, right? Like, look at the whole growing your own food movement, right? I mean, that is coming back with a vengeance, right? People are learning to be farmers again. And so, people are growing food in their backyard and sharing. And if we all know how to grow a little bit of our own food, oh my gosh, how empowering is that?
I'm one of those. I have a huge garden. Love it.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. I got chickens, and I got chickens. I can't believe how many eggs they make. We don't have to buy eggs anymore. We have to give them away now.
Fantastic. Love it. It's empowering.
But, Liza, let's come back to your book. So, and I think this is a really nice segue to it, because I think actually everything you do is so coherent. I don't know if you know how coherent it is, but why collate this book of stories of women investors? Why pick that project and get behind it?
Yeah. So again, for me, being the leader of WREN, the Women's Real Estate Network, and seeing the vast opportunities that exist for women in real estate. Jonathan, just to one of your comments about the number of women who are realtors, right? But how many of those realtors are actually investors? So, and how many of them have it as a full-time job or a part-time side hustle? So it'd be interesting to really dig into the data and see how deep it goes. So one of the things that we're noticing trend-wise is women are driving the real estate market, meaning if you're in a couple and you say to the man, okay, well, who made the decision on your house? 90% of the guys will say, oh, well, when I think of it, it was my wife, right? And there are many reasons behind that. Is it in the right neighborhood? Are the kids going to go to the right school? Does the kitchen have enough space? Are there enough closets? What are the guys looking at? The garden, the garage, and the man cave.
Not all guys do that,
right? I'm generalizing, but generally women are the ones who are fussier with their real estate personal purchase. So with the book, what I was noticing was all of these women that I was learning from and investing with, they were all doing things that were very different. And so what I wanted to show is being a real estate investor isn't just about what I call the HGTV romance, right? It's not just about, taking a house and flipping it and making it into a beautiful vacation rental. Although that's a great thing. And I mean, I've done that myself, and I'm actually in the process of doing that now. But there's so much more than that. So for example, Darlene Smith in Moncton on the east coast of Canada realized that seniors didn't have enough housing in her community. And so she built seniors housing. She started with, her first thing was flipping a mobile home. And she went from that to renovating a property that could be turned into a seniors home, to buying a piece of land, working with the government to get a grant, to building an entire seniors complex, and then actually selling it back to the government once she had staffed it up and created a whole system for them to run with. So that's a much, much different thing than, doing a vacation rental. Then there's other people like Ava who are doing multifamily investments with general partnership and limited liability partnerships in the US with, hundreds of investors buying $150 million properties. So there's this whole scope of what are these women doing? And each woman in the book was so unique and so different that I just felt like the stories had to be told. I mean, we could do a book with 50 women investors and we still wouldn't cover all of the possibilities. We've got people who are passive lenders. We've got people who built entire apartment buildings. We've got people who, have collaborated. So I feel like it's really important for women to hear what's possible. And I think the key thread in the book and why it's called From Ordinary to Extraordinary is all of these women, none of them were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Most of them came to real estate investing from some kind of, crisis or path that they needed to change in their lives, and realizing that real estate was a really good solution to a problem that they had. So I just, I had to tell it and wanted to share it and hope that it really inspires more women to realize that, anybody can do it. You need to have the right people. You need to have access to the right experts. You need to be in the right circle, find groups of people who are like-minded. You need to be, the timing is always good. And there's a number of factors that come together, but there's no barriers to real estate investing if you're willing to put the work and the time in and surround yourself with the right people.
You start with the statistic that women own just 20% of the world's land, and that's a global statistic, is that right?
Yeah, is it even 20%?
It's 20. Yeah, I fact checked it. It was like in the opening of your book, and I was like, I don't believe this. I fact checked it. It's true.
So I think at one time recently it was only 10%. So that's actually changed dramatically. Go ahead, Jonathan. I cut you off there while we were getting that stat.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So why do you think it's important to start there with real estate or with land instead of, say, the wage gap or total net worth? So why focus on real estate?
Well, again, I think it's all of those things.
Okay.
Right. I mean, if we are going to be able to play in the real estate game, we also need women to have good jobs and be able to afford real estate. I mean, right now I'm in Victoria, BC, which is one of the most expensive markets in North America. And in order to qualify for, I believe it's a $400,000 mortgage, the way that the rates and the stress test are right now, you need to have a salary of $160,000. Right? I mean, we know in the States, what is the $30,000 is the average salary in the States, because the number so the number of people that earn $30,000 is way, way, way higher than the people who earn, over 80,000, for example. Right. So it's just, I think the number is something about the huge number of people in the US who work in the fast food industry, for example, making $30,000 or less. So we need to work on all of those things. We need to close the gender gap. We need more women to be represented for many different reasons, right? More women, more people of color. We just, I think someone said it recently, 50% of the global population is women. So why are they only getting to make 5% of the decisions? So.
I looked this up in preparation, and I'm just going to quote a few things here. So I looked this up. This is women's share of regional wealth is highest in North America, but it's growing fastest in Asia. What this is the women's share of regional wealth in North America is 37%, right? In Asia, it's or say we'll call it in excluding Japan, Asia, it's 32%. But in the US, it's only growing at 6%. And in Asia, it's growing at 10%. And this is relative. This is women relative to men. And so think about looking across Eastern or Western Europe, it's like 14% is women. Asia, it's like I just said, it's 13%. Japan is 2.7%. Latin America, it's 1.4%. You get to Eastern Europe, it's 0.8% is owned by women. It is skewed so heavily against in everywhere, but so much more in the emerging world. So is there any work that you see being done that's working in that emerging world, or are you mainly working on the networks that are local to you in your space?
Yeah, I mean, mostly we're working on the networks here. I mean, I'd love to do things more globally, but part of it is, how much do we take on, right? I mean, I'd
Right.
love to take on the world, but one thing at a time. But in terms of those emerging trends, again, I think it's partly access to education. And if you look at Asia, the access to education for all of Asia, and then if you think of the women citizens of those emerging markets and countries that are changing the way that they are, are they communist or are they capitalist, and how are they adjusting within those kinds of boundaries. In general, more women are just having access to everything, money, micro lending, education, so many organizations globally are focusing on getting women out of poverty, because when you bring a woman out of poverty, you also then bring her family out of poverty. And again, the international data shows that for every woman a dollar earns, she invests up to 80% of that back into her family and her community. And it's a little bit lower for the guys. So, when you're spending $1 and getting 80% of that invested back into that tight little circle, that's a pretty good return on the future investments for a community. It just bodes so well to be doing that.
So do you think of real estate as you own property and you get some kind of rents for that property, or do you think of it as like running a business? Because I think that looking at private business and private enterprise is just one of those ways that we develop wealth, entrepreneurship, and real estate is it's like an easy, well-documented form to be a method of being an entrepreneur. Absolutely.
So I definitely look at it as a business. One of the things that I learned when I was first learning about real estate is how many businesses will you be able to go to the bank and say, hey, I'd like a mortgage, and the bank will say, okay, great, you only need to put 10% down, right? So there are very few businesses where you can go to the bank and say, hey, I'd like to start a business and I'd like you to give me 90% of the loan that I need to get this business started. So that again is one of the powers of being able to get into real estate. And the access to private money in real estate is huge. The access to government programs. We just did a presentation this week on a government program that's being updated. The Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation is doing a program where you can pretty much get 95% of an apartment building either built or stabilized, if you're buying an existing one, funded. So, knock on the door and say, hey, I got this great opportunity. It's $2 million. What do I need to put down of my own money? Or if you're bringing in partners, right, maybe potentially none of your own money, $2 million investment, you might only have to come up with $1 million or sorry, $100,000 or maybe $200,000 to cover all of the costs. Like when you look at real estate as a business and you look at it as having lots of levels within that business, right? Like I often talk about with my investors, when we're looking at a property, I'll say, okay, put on your corporate hat, because now we're talking about the asset. So when we're talking about owning the asset of this, this hard wall, bricks and mortar thing, we're putting on our ownership hat. When we are talking about the executive rental or the tenants, we're now putting on our business hat, right? And we're maybe putting on our, how do we actually run the business? And so they're slightly different in terms of how you look at them. And then you also need to put on your tenant hat, because if you're going to be a good owner, you have to look at it from the perspective of what are you providing for your tenants? You know, are you providing safe, clean, affordable housing for your tenants, or are you providing, you know, an amazing executive luxury rental experience that's going to give you a great Airbnb review, right? So knowing what you're providing and making sure that you're providing that. And so looking at it with that business hat on, and understanding that even with that business hat on, there's different levels that you're going to be looking at it from.
I have a client who's been a female client. She's older and she's always wanted to get into real estate a little bit. She has plenty of assets to do it. And she would, you know, beat me if I didn't ask this question. So I have to ask, you know, she's always struggled with taking that first step. You know, so what is that? What is, in your opinion, what's the first step? If someone really wants to get started and they want to invest in real estate, what's the first thing they should do?
Join a network, right? I mean, that is it. You need to be in the room with people who are doing it. If you are in the room, and I mean, you know, it could be virtually, you know, start listening to podcasts, go to as many free education opportunities as you possibly can. I mean, I've been to, you know, Keyspire with Scott McGillivray. I've been to lots of REN events. I was a REN member for a while, Real Estate Investment Network of Canada. I managed to get a seat at a group with fortune builders in the US. So there's 4 of us that have a fortune builders membership, and that's, you know, kind of the Canadian equivalent. You guys probably know Fan Merrill, right? Flip This House. That's fortune builders. So A&E's Flip This House was huge in the US, and then Fan started fortune builders, and now it's an empire. I mean, it's huge. And so getting in with people who are in the room doing the same thing is where you need to start.
And
I hear stories every day from REN members who say, oh my God, I just talked my husband into letting us loosen up some of our equity in our home to help our daughter buy her first house. Because that is the fear with baby boomers right now, right? They're not letting go of that wealth, and they could be helping their children become multimillionaires overnight by helping them get invested in real estate, but they're too afraid to start.
totally. So there's so many people telling the messages and the stories about how to invest in real estate. You know, just going to the network and how do you keep from, you know, being taken advantage of because you're new? I think that's the biggest fear, is there's so many people that are selling their book, that are talking their book.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
Yeah. So joining a network would be number one. Join a network who actually works with experts. So a real estate focused lawyer, a real estate focused accountant, regional experts, you know, people who are in the area that you are investing in that you can turn to and ask questions to, mortgage brokers who are investors. I mean, every person that we deal with in terms of our REN family, they all own investment properties. So our realtor is an investment focused realtor. Our lawyer is an investment focused lawyer who owns investment. And I mean, we do deals with our experts, right? Like when you get a phone call from your lawyer that says, hey, I'd like to invest on this next project with you, you're like, oh, wow, that's so cool, right? Because that's like, you kind of hit the jackpot then when the lawyer is phoning you saying, hey, can I get in on your next investment? That's when you really know you're doing things right, when you get your realtor partnering with you. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that you want to approach. So join a network, but you know, do your due diligence. Ask the questions. There should be no stupid question when you're just getting started, right? I mean, you ask the questions. How do I get started? You know, what's the exit strategy? Everybody, you always need to know, okay, it's great, we're going to buy this thing. What do we do? How do we sell it? Right? What's the exit strategy? Get your own team. So, you know, it's one thing for me to have my lawyer and me to say, yeah, just talk to my lawyer, but go to your own lawyer and say, you know, I'm thinking of joining this group. This is what they're about. You know, what do you think about this? So just yesterday, for example, one of our REN members has invested in the exempt market. And she said, yeah, it took me a while to make the decision to decide because my financial planner doesn't like the exempt market. So she said, but I'm doing it anyway. And so why is she doing it anyway? Because she's done her research, she's done her due diligence, she's looked at what the returns are, you know, past returns, which do not always reflect future opportunity, you know, disclosure. but she feels confident in making the decision based on, the learning that she's learned from being in the group, the number of people who were invested with this particular person, their track record, understanding how to do due diligence, talking to her experts, and then deciding, do I listen to what my experts are saying, or do I go with my own gut? And usually you end up somewhere in the middle. You're going to do some deals that are just based on feeling and emotion and your gut, and you're going to do others that are, your advisor is going to say, this is a good opportunity, go for it, or run now, run as far as you can, right? And so somewhere you're going to land, in the middle of that. But it is all about taking the first step to get in the room with people who are doing it. Read the books, get the education, go to the free seminars, have coffee with people who are doing it. I mean, our WREN members talk to our experts all the time, right? How do I become a private lender? Call Jorian, right? Jorian's he's a private lender and a mortgage broker. And we've got people who are talking to him about, what do I do when I do my first private loan? I mean, we've got a woman who's got $1 million that she wants to lend. You don't just say, hey, go loan it to this person. You say, talk to your lawyer, talk to this person, and get it set up properly.
I have one more sort of operational question, and I'm gonna back away and let Terry ask a question. Can you speak to the difference between actively investing in real estate and passively investing in somebody else's real estate deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, great question. And again, it's kind of like the man and the woman spectrum, right? There's passive lending and there's active investing. And so there's everything on that scale. And people sometimes say, well, what's the difference, right? Well, it's, the difference between being a true passive investor is you're writing a check and then you're like, send me a report in 6 months time, and so there are lots of people who invest 100% passively. So they may invest in a project as a passive investor where they're just writing that check. And again, this is all done with the right due diligence. They might be a private lender where they might go and look at the property that they're lending on. Then it goes all the way from, just investing the dollars to what our friend Joan is doing right now. She's renovating a bank repossession mobile home. So she's on the tools, she's laying floor, she's ripping down wallpaper, she's putting up siding, she comes on to the meeting and she's covered in paint, right? And she's picking up water barrels, and she needs to get her dog a t-shirt that says, part of the construction crew. So there's everything in between. I mean, I fall kind of in the middle. I don't necessarily like to pick up the tools too often, but you can stick a paintbrush in my hand. And I think because of where I am in the network, because we have a number of different properties, it's often my role is to be the kind of the leader, the cheerleader, the person who brings the financing together, the person who brings the team together. And so that's an active role in terms of the structure, but it's not active in terms of having a hammer and a tool belt and a hat, and and a drill, so and everything in between. So hopefully that kind of answers it. But what you do, like what a lot of investors do, is before you make any big decisions, just play around a little bit, right? Go to someone's renovation and pick up a tool for a half a day and see if you like it, right? And it's always different when you're doing it in collaboration than when you're doing it on your own. Like, I don't mind turning over my Airbnb suites if I've got the girls and we've got a bottle of wine open. It's a party, right? Like, let's clean this place and have a bottle of wine, and then it just doesn't even feel like you're working. But if I'm, cleaning the bathtub on my own because, the cleaner's not available and I've got to go in and turn over a suite quickly, I'm just like, oh my God, it's a beautiful sunny day and here I am by myself cleaning a tub, right? So it's always more fun when you're collaborating. So when you're hanging wallpaper and you've got someone to help you hang the wallpaper, it's so much better.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're getting to the end of the time that we have for this interview. Liza, is there any kind of last piece of advice that you want to give people, in terms of what they can do to get started, or for a kind of a female cheerleading kind of a thing you want to give us to conclude stuff?
Yeah, I think, we've covered it, but really it is get started, right? Like, don't be afraid to get started. If you've got a little bit of money that's sitting in your bank account, not doing anything, or if you always had an interest in real estate, but you just don't know where to start, the key thing is to take that first step, either buy a book, listen to the podcasts, reach out to hosts and educators, and start asking people, how do I get started with you or with a group or in my geographic location? But just start taking action, right? The further you're going to get ahead much further, much faster if you just start to take action, right? Don't let the books become shelf help. Don't, read the first chapter and then move on to something else, and be ready to do the hard work, right? Real estate is a long-term game. It's game and gain. It's not something that you're, yes, there are people who have made quick dollars and quick turnaround in incredible markets, but that's not the norm. You have to look at real estate as a 5 to 10 to 20-year plan. And it can be life-changing for yourself, your friends, your family, your community, if you stick with it. Don't give up when you're 3 feet from gold, or when you've had one bad experience, right? Stick with it, learn the tuition, surround yourself with great people. Don't do it alone, and just start taking action.
Aside from being supportive on, the women in our lives doing those things, what else can I do to be helpful, aside from just saying, yeah, go do these things that Liza's telling you to do?
Yeah, and Jonathan, I think that is a big part of it, right? Is being supportive. It's and being curious. One of the big things is, sometimes we can offer our support, but what does that support look like, right? Support can sometimes be curiosity, like, well, tell me how this works, like, tell me how this is making you feel, tell me, explain to me why you're so passionate about this, right? Having that curiosity that helps to, really get down to the layers of why we're doing the things we're doing. That whole, the whole why piece of it, being curious about that, and being vulnerable about what your fears are. Right? Like, sometimes if somebody's not supporting you, why? What is it about this particular thing that is not allowing you to offer the support? Because maybe there's a tipping point there where if something was in place, you would be supportive. So I think there's that, that range of the vulnerability and talking about what's holding you back from being supportive, and then the curiosity that helps bring up that support to another level.
Are you a therapist in another life?
I like what I'm putting down, Jonathan.
Yeah, no, but I think that's some really good advice, because I think, like, one of the themes through the interview has been this aspect of fear. And I think a lot of the times when people are not being supportive, or, something like that is not working, it's because there's a fear underlying it that's preventing them. And so to, like, sort of turn it around and be like, well, what is it? Like, why am I not, what is preventing you from buying into this? Tell me, what are you scared of behind that?
Exactly.
So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, because most of the time we're more scared of our success than we're scared of our failure.
True.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Liza, thank you for taking this time with us. It's been a really fun conversation, great interview. And we will ask everybody to, share this, subscribe if they liked it. Liza, where can people find you?
So the easiest place to find me is WREN.club. That's WREN.CLUB. The 8 letters, it's really easy. And our contact information is there. We do a monthly newsletter. The book is there as well. And so, yeah, you can send us a little note, and obviously subscribe if you like, and reach out if you have more questions. And yeah, I love doing this, love being able to help enlighten people, and love sharing these great conversations. So Jonathan and Terry, thank you very much for the opportunity. Great chat. I'm sure we could talk all day, right?
Yep. Thanks, Liza.
You're welcome. Thank you.